Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Vassell, and welcome to At the Table with Tom and Eric, a show about people who play games. Once again, I'd like to say I'm Tom Vassell.
Still working on those cue cards there, Tom. And I'm Eric Summerer.
I don't normally read stuff, okay? Eric makes me read stuff.
It's the same sentence every episode. And I'm Eric Summerer. At the table today, our guest is a Dice Tower contributor alumnus and a host of the Shelf Stories YouTube channel. He's also a cognitive behavioral therapist, that's a mouthful, who provides individual therapy in a private practice near Hartford, Connecticut, right in my backyard. Everybody, please welcome Mr. Jason Perez. Hi there, Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up? It is good to be back on the Dice Tower. You did the hoity-toity intro, Dice Tower alumnus reviewer. I love the sound of that.
You need to wear your special hat if you're an alumnus.
Or a T-shirt. I never got a T-shirt or like a Dice Guy or anything.
We don't.
So it's like I need to get.
You know what? You were about to get a Dice Guy, so that was you were so close. I'm making new ones now.
Man, if I'd have done like a 100th review or something, I think I ended at like 90 something. Well, if I had gone to 100, it would have been awesome.
Actually, I could just take a random one and say, that's you, and you would never know.
Or Z Garcia's. Like me and Z's would look really similar.
So, Tom, anything you want to share before we get into the meat of the show? I know you have some happy news, at least on this program, to share.
Actually, it's double thing here. First of all, one of my daughter 3, has graduated high school. So I am 3/7 of the way to, well, debt, actually. But you know what? College is expensive. Let no one tell you otherwise. So congratulations to Holly, although I will be sad to lose her painting skills here in the studio. But also, yes, I'm a grandfather, which now means I'm old. 45 is not too bad for a grandfather, though, right?
That's an impressive pace. Well done.
My father is 65 as a great-grandfather. So if this kid grows up quickly, it's possible my dad could fit into that great-great-grandfather.
All right.
Anyway, that's that. I'm not going to keep announcing this, folks, in every single episode of things. I only said it here because Eric put it in.
I made him.
I don't want to keep dragging this out. Let's talk to Jason. This show's about him. Jason, are you a grandfather?
Congratulations, man. That is so awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah, are you a grandfather? This is our transitional thing.
Right. No, my oldest daughter is 6, and she just got her first Switch yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You will never see her again.
In a way, that's like a child, right?
It will lead into a topic that we discuss later in the podcast, so I'll bring it up then.
Okay.
All right. Let's back it up a little bit then. So we mentioned that you're in the Hartford, Connecticut area now. What was your journey to get to Hartford? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut because it is less expensive.
Yep.
Which is weird to say because as a Connecticutan, you'll appreciate it's not exactly cheap to live here. But the fact that it is less expensive than New York makes a big deal.
Isn't Connecticut like in the top 5 expensive places in America?
It depends on where you are. So
right.
Connecticut actually has some of the most expensive and least expensive areas to live, depending on how far away you are from the cities. We're right between Boston and New York, and so there's all sorts of little pockets. But the closer you get to New York City, the more New York commuters you get. And yeah, the cost of living goes way up.
Correct.
Huh. This is news to me.
So I'm in a relatively okay place. I mean, we have I'm in here in my basement over here. There was no basements in New York City, or I mean, unless if you're a renter or anything like that. So I mean, I'm happy. I have a basement. I have a play space. I have a podcast, quote unquote, studio. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the reason why I'm here at Hartford. And, you know, our mutual friends, Brant Sanderson, Jen Bartlett, a bunch of other local gamers have welcomed me, and this is now home.
Very, very cool. Did you take part in the gaming scene in New York while you were there?
I was not as much of a board gamer. I was more of a D&D person when I was my last like 5-10 years in Brooklyn. So I was a DM for Wizards of the Coast, and I would do their organized play. So at the time it was 4th edition, so I DM the heck out of 4th edition, and so we'll get into this. Maybe I don't know. Like it's on the list, so I can go into it right now if you really want me to.
Go for it. Let's.
I have a side question here, real quick.
Yeah.
So, Jason, have you watched the new Stranger Things?
No.
Okay, then I can't ask you this because I was going to ask you what you thought of their portrayal of D&D. But okay.
Is there a new?
No.
There's a
I've
new
seen
D&D
the first.
scene?
I was a huge fan of the first 3 seasons, and yeah, I resonate with that. Like when they, in the basement, and like in the, I think the second and third seasons, it was like, okay, one person really wants to play, but then the other ones want to date girls, and that is totally
yes, that's 100% on the nose.
Or like, some people kind of like, drift in their interest, but some person's like, oh, come on, I gotta go. And I was both of those people. At some point I'd be really into it. At some point I'd want to do something else, play sports or do whatever. And yeah, so like that I think the early seasons did really well with that. I just like thought the show itself by season 3 kind of lost its way, but this is not a Stranger Things pod.
So you said you were doing this for Wizards of the Coast. Were you an official DM for the company?
Not like hired. I wasn't paid, but they have, like swag deals and everything. It's like, okay, if you do, and you can, at the time anyway, I'm not really sure how it works now. But they gather in formal communities, and everyone, and actually I would go to a couple of their fests, like Winterfest or whatever fest, and I'd volunteer as a DM, and like it was mostly volunteer, but like people knew who I was, and it was super fun. I love DMing. I wish I could get back into it, but a lot of different things have happened, so different journey.
So what was your entry point? If you were very steeped in the RPG field, what sort of sparked your interest in board gaming?
So I transitioned. I can tell you exactly the point. So when because this is a question. When I grew up with a lot of simple card games, like Uno, which I think is on the list somewhere.
Tom has questions about Uno. Yes.
Happy to answer them. So then, drifted over into like, family stuff. And I still have like a lot of, I think I have Simpsons Monopoly sitting here somewhere in the back. That was, bread and butter, that kind of thing. Became a D&D player in high school. And I played 2E the entire time, and different systems. So like Shadowrun and Palladium and different ones. And I loved it. I was really an RPG player for a long time. Then I became cool. And then when I was in like college and stuff, and then I became uncool again, which is the best decision I ever made in my life. I got back into D&D, and I really got into it hard. Now, at the time, it was 4E. I see a comment by Loopy, 5E is better than 4E. I agree with you. There was no 5E when I was getting back to D&D. I just took what I can get. It's all good. So it was Winterfest 2011 or 12, somewhere around there. I was a con in Indianapolis, and I drove the entire time because I was so into it. And so I did my DM things. I played a lot, and they had this thing called a Euro game. What's a Euro game? I have no idea. And so I played, and it was Lords of Waterdeep. It was before its release. And I was like, games do this? This is cool. And I bought it right on the spot. And I went home and I played the heck out of it. And it was like, this is really cool. So then, and just that was the opener. And it took, I think, Tom, we were talking before on the show about like different themes, like, you either get into them or not into them. If it was any other theme, I don't think I would have given it the chance. But it was not even specifically fantasy. It was D&D. And the fact that it was like, and it wasn't just D&D, it was Waterdeep, and it was all the characters that I knew. And like Mert the Money Changer. It's like, whoa, my God, Mert the Money Changer, that's so cool. Doesn't do anything Mert the Money Changer, but it's like there. And
yeah, but this has always been one of the reasons I've really liked. I mean, I think Lords of Waterdeep's a great game anyway. Yeah. But I love the fact that I hesitate, I don't like using the word gateway a lot, but it is a strong introductory game that got gamers into the hobby. Just like I think Dominion has snared a lot of Magic the Gathering players, Lords of Waterdeep snared a lot of Dungeons and Dragon players.
It's exactly what happened to me, and I'm happy to say I still have the original. I should have probably I should have had the boxes here. It's up there somewhere, and it's held together by masking tape. The original insert is completely gone, and I love it. I will never get rid of that game. And I play it on. I even play it like to this day on like the iOS app. I'll just play like a random game or something. I just think Lords of Waterdeep is amazing. And once I got into Lords of Waterdeep, then you go to at the time it was the Complete Strategist in Manhattan, and it's like, what else is there? And I discovered cooperative games, and so now I'm basically a cooperative gamer. So I discovered Pandemic and for the Forbidden series and Space Alert. Ooh, I got that one right here. Where is it? It's over here. There it is.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Space Alert, I think so. Between Space Alert, Pandemic, and Sentinels of the Multiverse, those are my three like first huge cooperative games, and I could play them solo, so I can play them whenever I want. I'd get together with my friends and I play them there. And this was 2011, so it was a lot of like, you're playing games solo. What's still going on here? And I was like, you know what, this is really cool. And eventually, with COVID and with all these solo modes, that's not as nearly as big a deal. And Tom, your number one game being a game we play solo, like, Gloomhaven and Mansion of Madness and stuff like that. So like, I think there's been a huge mind shift, but that if I didn't have the solo gaming aspect, I wouldn't, be into the hobby as much as I am either. So it was a slow progression. So like those were the key games that really got me into it. And then once I was there, once I think, because I could see the Amazon order, it was like February 2012 or 13. It was a bunch of Pandemic and a bunch of Sentinels of the Multiverse, and then that was it.
Excellent. I can see Tom is just chomping at the bit to ask his question about Uno.
No.
I want to make sure he gets to do it.
There's going to be no time. Well, this actually, I know why. I told Eric to ask this question just because I was being silly, but this actually ties into the next question, which is, so tell us a little bit about your day job and how board gaming affects it.
Okay, so my day job, I am as Eric, very, very good, by the way.
Thank you.
You introduced me as a cognitive behavioral therapist with a practice in Hartford. So I'm a therapist, and I do individual therapy in the office. And when there was office work, which there is right now, it's mostly remote. So like what I'm doing right now is what I'm doing, with clients and everything. As a matter of fact, I just hopped off, with a client, shut it down, bring the computer down in front of the games, and now I'm here. Before, like if I had like a younger kid, there would be a lot of different gaming options, or even with adults, there'd be certain games that I would, introduce for certain circumstances. So I don't know if you have a lot of anxiety, I would, play some kind of calming game or some kind of exposure game where I'd heighten your anxiety and help you learn how to deal with it. Like, I remember I played Flashpoint with this person who had high anxiety.
Really?
Okay, no, that's legit. I just never thought of it that way. There's a lot of games that could give you high anxiety, that's for sure.
And that one gives you super anxiety because you flip it and you have the cat and you're trying to rescue the cat, and it's like, okay, an exposure therapy.
That doesn't give me any anxiety.
I do not recommend just doing it. You have to be trained. But you expose yourself to something. It's like, if your person's afraid of heights, you bring them to a high building or whatever it is. So then if a person has anxiety, you can, in a certain way, heighten their anxiety in a very kind of contained way. And then, once you calm down, they rescue the cat or whatever it is. I'd play the easy mode. I wasn't out to kill cats or anything. So then, then I would like debrief. It's like, okay, how did that feel? Did you have coping skills? Did you have a problem solving mindset? And it was like, wow, yeah, that felt pretty good. Or they would be like, wow, that was pretty silly. So I tried that a couple times. But no, I absolutely think it, in the right way with the right skill, games can do like a lot of good stuff.
In some of our pre-show discussions, you mentioned that you've had a couple of other gamer-related issues that you've dealt with clients. Is it possible to talk about some of those that you brought up in those conversations?
That was a very general question.
It was a very general question. You said so stuff like FOMO.
Yes.
And acquisition disorder, the stuff that we sort of joke about. Oh man, I got FOMO about this thing, about missing out on this Kickstarter. But you mentioned it as an actual, legitimate issue that some people have had to work through, and some of these issues that gamers have dealt with in a real fashion is something that you've also dealt with in your practice.
Yeah, I mean, this is not something I advertise. I will never ever advertise this, but I've definitely had people, because I'm very online. Now, people know me. I'm very obvious on Facebook. I'm very obvious on Twitter, and I do mental health, right? And so if somebody is really feeling it for whatever reason, they'll reach out, or I will, participate in an existing discussion, bring a perspective, and people are like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. So yeah, something like FOMO or like retail therapy. So people who make themselves feel better for whatever reason, their world is kind of, not feeling all that great. Like it is an actual thing that people will think they can buy their way out of however they're feeling. Like, you press the button, add to cart, boom, done. It gives you that dopamine rush. And if you're living a life where there is not a lot of dopamine, in fact, there's a lot of distress and cortisol and whatever, like that one little bit of relief can actually do something. Problem being, how often are you going to press that button? Can you afford to press that button? With the FOMO thing, like if you're looking at a Kickstarter, and I don't want to, I'm not going to call out a game in particular. I'm thinking of one in particular, but I'll keep it general. So like, let's say you have a game that has like a regular version and a deluxe version right next to each other. So then, the regular version is within your means, but you don't want to miss out on the deluxe version because who knows, it might have extra gameplay. You don't want to feel left out. And that seems like, well, just do what you can afford. I hear that advice too. Like, just do what you can afford. And it's like, well, it's not that easy, because a lot of psychological stuff's going on under the hood. Maybe the person is feeling left out. They're feeling disconnected from the community. They log on to Facebook to see everyone with their deluxe whatever, and they're there with their dinky regular version, and they don't want to feel that way. So people solve that by going beyond their means. And so I'll we'll have a chat or have a group discussion and say, okay, this is the anxiety, this is the bad feeling. Is there another way that we can deal with that, or just by the act of talking about it and acknowledging somebody? It's like, yes, somebody said I don't have to buy the deluxe thing. Sometimes it just, even that is enough to like kind of break them out of that spell, and so just help. So I've tried to help people be good about their collections, have a healthy attitude about their collections, have a healthy attitude about gaming. And I have my little thing. It's tough because it's like you help somebody and then you go to another corner of the internet and it's like a raging fire. But I try the best that I can. I really do.
Excellent. Well, I think it's time to head into our big question. Are we ready, Tom? To delve?
I'm so ready.
All right. So, Jason, we're always told in playing games not to cheat. That's generally the rule. Don't cheat at games. It's like the number one rule, besides put the board in the center of the table. But there are occasions where cheating is okay. And I'm hoping we can explore, when is cheating okay in a game?
I feel like I've talked a lot. Tom, do you have some thoughts that we can bounce?
Well, I'll start off with the easiest one. I don't think anybody would argue on this one, but I think it's okay to cheat when you're playing a solitaire game because who cares? In a sense of, it's like kind of using a cheat.
You're cheating yourself, Tom.
Well, sure, but for example, if I'm playing a game, let's say I'm playing Tainted Grail, and I'm in a battle, and I die, and I'm like, oh, I got to go back like 40 minutes. Didn't happen because it's my enjoyment. I'm not affecting anybody else. I'm not later on going to be like, I beat the game. And someone says, but did you beat it honestly? There's none of that. It's just me. I'm determining my fun. It's the same as if I use a cheat code in a video game. You can do what you want.
It's like sticking your finger in the Choose Your Own Adventure book and making a decision, but then holding your place where you made that decision and then flipping back.
That's not cheating. That's how everyone on Earth does those books, Eric.
That's how you play Choose Your Own Adventure games, yes.
Is that okay? Am I good so far, Jason?
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess like I'll add the pin where it's like, I think in those particular cases you kind of stumbled on the example where like, the fact that a bad move or a bad poll can flame like an hour and a half of your time. Like if I don't play this, then I got to reset this whole thing and get to it again. I have a game up here. Robinson Crusoe is terrible at that. Like that game, like you can get gangrene and die just like you could nothing you can do. And it's like, wait a minute, if I don't get gangrene, then maybe I can see the rest of the story or whatever it is. That's okay. So like if you can save yourself a whole lot of time and energy, then that's great. I think the long form of that is like, okay, cheat always in solo, then why are you playing? Like you might as well just play something else. But
sure,
if it's just,
I get that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
I'm
if it's
just
to
saying
save a lot of
occasionally.
time, right?
Yeah.
Or if if it's to save like a Seventh Continent went through this, because a lot of people complain for the first edition of Seventh Continent, like if you died, you had to reset the whole game, and that game was long, like the whole thing. And they for the redid, they did this like I forget what they're called, but like infinity cards or something where like you could save your progress. And it's like thank God. Like more solo should incorporate like saving progress and ways that you don't have to go into that whole cheating corner or whatever.
Now, what if I expand that to cooperative? Same thing. You mentioned Seventh Continent. If everyone at the table's okay with it, I think it's okay.
If you're saving yourself a lot of time and bother. Yeah, sure. Why not? I think someone in the chat is talking about like solos and co-ops. Like, if there's I am not a person, and it falls into the Uno conversation as well. Like in terms of rules as written, I am not dominated by the specter of rules as written. Because rules as written does not, like an author can make it or a game maker can make their rules. And do they know the life circumstances of every single person who's playing their game? Absolutely not. So like they do a general set of rules. And, it's like if that doesn't work for your table, then the table should come up with another set of rules that fits for them. I totally agree with that. And maybe that's my background as a DM for a D&D, a GM. It's like rule 0. Rule 0 is like whatever is good for the fun of the table.
I agree, as long as it's, if one person's like, I really want to play by the rules, I think you have to kind of default to those rules or default to not having that player.
Yeah, something has to change. Yeah, and if solo, you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I think that there's a rule 0 and there's a social contract amongst the table. And if it's good with the social contract, there's a consensus on the table that like, okay, this rule set, whatever we're doing conflicts with the rule set. If we're not matching up on that, then it's our fun. Rule 0, rule of cool. I am. Tom and I were going back and forth. We go back and forth about a lot of things. But this one, I think we're on the same page.
What? We'd never disagree. Second thing here, you're going to agree with me on this one too. It's okay to cheat in a game if the rules explicitly allow it, in which case it's kind of not cheating. But there are a few games like Cosmic Encounter, Dragon's Gold, Illuminati, which allow cheating. Then again, it's kind of a rule. It's not really a cheat, but it feels like cheating.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I don't even register that as cheating. It's all good.
Well, it says cheating in the thing.
The rule
That's
says
why.
cheating, yeah. But then what do you count as cheating? If somebody says you can cheat, then what does that definition entail?
Usually there's rules about the cheating.
That really doesn't count. So, all right. So we've sort of agreed on cooperatives and solo. I think as long as everyone's agreeing to it. And I think it's that magic circle argument. Right. Is there a time that the magic circle allows in a straight up competitive game cheating? If that magic circle, how does that magic circle get constructed that allows everybody to cheat in a competitive
I've heard
game?
of this, Eric. I couldn't do it. I know that there's some people who believe that you can cheat if you get away with it, and other people are like, clever you. I think that's bad philosophy to teach. To take that outside, that's the same kind of people like, well, I cheated my taxes. Everyone does it, so it's okay. I have a problem with that philosophy.
Like it's part of the good play of the game to have cheated and gotten away with it. That's just the way I play.
I've met people who believe that. That's mind-boggling to me.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I don't know, like, what's the point? What's the point? Or is it like a meta game? Is it like, okay, I'm in whatever magic circle, the meta game is, can I get away with this? And so not only are you playing a game at the table, you're playing a game against your ability to either, cheat beneath the perception of other players. And maybe there are groups where like that's their meta rule, that's their rule 0. Like if you like everybody else is trying to okay, I'm going to do this. And, if I'm going to take this extra resource and if nobody notices whatever, then, I mean, I can't tell people what to play, but that is not a table that I want to be a part of. No, thank you.
Okay, so what about, here's the more controversial one, I suppose. What if I cheat to lose?
Right. That's what I was, and that's what I want to talk about my daughter. Right.
All right.
All right. Because you got kids, right? You got kids, Tom. You got plenty of them. I think you got like 17, 18 kids, somewhere around there.
It's less. It's less. I'm down by one, but then I had a grandson, so I'm back up. It will never go away.
So my daughter. Okay, so my daughter's first game was Uno. Like it was Disney Princess Uno. And again, this is another reason why I think Uno was a magical game. 9 out of 10 people. I stand by that. I took a lot of crap, and I'm going to continue taking crap on that one, but that's okay. Anyway, so for her first game was Disney Princess Uno, and I'm just teaching her. And she, like anybody else, gets a thrill out of winning. And so every once in a while, it would be like, okay, I could play this. I have this draw 2. I'm going to switch that draw two out for another card, like if it's the opening deal or whatever. So then, or I have this match. I'm not going to make this match. I'll let this do. Like kind of softening the thing, and then eventually she would win, and she would be like ecstatic. She'd be jumping around, and you have to teach them, like okay, don't be too happy and blah blah. So then the game playing goes on, and I teach her more and more advanced games, and every once in a while it'll be necessary to kind of like, or I felt it necessary just for her own enjoyment. And now she is asking me for game playing. We have tons of games that we play, and I've introduced her to video gaming. So I have raised a gamer. And so would that have happened if I just like, no, it's here. I drew a draw two, so you have to draw two for your face. I just, how are you going to get people in the hobby if you're at a differential skill level and you just play straight? And I know the whole thing like, well, just play suboptimally. Well, there's no room in Uno, or there's no room in these simple games to play suboptimally. You just play what you play. And so it's like sometimes you have to kind of fudge the rules for their benefit in order for them to have a good time. I am totally into that. The results speak for themselves.
Well, I have to say, I 100% agree with you. Same thing
Yes!
here. The only difference is my kids also really love Uno and still play it to this day, and I still rank it at 2. I just want to be clear that I can play and have fun with my kids and still realize that I hate the game with the passion of 1,000 fiery suns.
Fine. I will not invite you to my nightly Uno. No, thank you. You're
out.
No! You're out. You're out.
The weekly Uno
also,
for money
that was a
games.
Question. Why did I rate Uno a 9? So A, it's my gateway game. B, it's such an easy teach. I mean, like the rules are dumb. I know I'm gonna cheese off every gamer who's watching this. Rules are dumb. And
my agreement with Jason stopped about 30 seconds ago. Just to be clear. Okay, keep going.
Any game, yeah. There we go. Now we're going into it. But any game that I can teach to a muggle, I can teach to an older person, younger person, like there is not a single constituency that I cannot teach Uno to. So and we have a good time. And it's a great therapy game. So like I've used that game as like mother and daughter are fighting, and there's like a court order against them as like we're doing reunification. Uno, I have used Uno during court-ordered reunification people. It is one of the only games that I can use that has had success. So it's like all those reasons. Why am I going off on this tangent? I just love talking about Uno. Eric, reel me in. What was I supposed to be talking about?
We have other questions.
Well, I think you definitely made. Yes, I think we should probably get to some questions.
All right.
So let's get to one from Jeremiah to start things off. This was posted to our BGG Guild before the show. You mentioned how you love to play solo games, Jason. Yes. So what game do you wish was solo? And flip side, what game that has a solo mode do you wish wasn't a solo mode? Which one do you wish didn't have a solo mode?
I mean, we'll go to Lords of Waterdeep. It does not have an official solo mode. Like, and as Jamie Stegmaier has shown us, like you can get bots in in any worker placement game. All you need is a bot to take resources away and give you that constraint, and you could play perfectly fine. So I would not mind a solo mode for Lords of Waterdeep, although I think like the designers are like doing way different things, and like we're not going to get any new content for Lords of Waterdeep. So I'm not holding my breath from that one, but that's an easy. I would play, Lords of Waterdeep solo a lot. A game that shouldn't have a solo?
It's a trick question. It's a trick question. Don't fall for it.
What solo mode do you not like is basically what that question is.
I mean, can I'm a kind, peaceful person. I don't like to call out any particular type of game. I think I'll say in general, any game where it's a different game at solo. So if you're playing like Ink and Gold, Ink and Gold does not have a solo mode, which is total push your luck, very party atmosphere and everything. But I've seen variants that have put solo mode on top of that engine. So it's like you're literally kind of flipping a card against another flip of the card. That's not the same game. So again, I'm not going to call any particular game up, but like any game that, if they're trying to service it as a market, they're trying to like expand the player count for sales purposes or whatever, and they throw that solo mode on and it just makes it a completely different experience. No, thank you. So I'll pass on that one.
I don't have anything else to add to that. So
excellent. Well, let's move on to Christopher's question then. How do you make your game group welcoming? I guess we could talk about what does your usual game group look like, and in your travels, you encounter more gaming groups that that are more inclusive and insular, that act as gatekeepers, or do you think most game groups you've encountered are welcoming and looking for new people?
It depends on the time. If the game time is at 7:30, then I've seen a lot of game groups that are welcoming and awesome. It's like, oh, come in, whatever. Once the games start, then God help you.
That's true.
That is interesting.
The pre-welcome versus the real welcome.
Because I've actually had to cut down on the local groups that I've gone to because I work later. Like, I'm a psychotherapist.
He's
so I have to
talking
work.
about your group, Eric.
I see working people. No comments for the Connecticut people. But like, I work later, so I don't get out until a lot of game groups have started. And I've had the experience, I can't tell you how many times, of going to a place, seeing if there's an open table and there's nothing. And not only is there nothing, it's like no one wants to poke up their heads. And I get it. And actually, I think it's worse here amongst our group because we have Euro players here. I mean, that is what I've met a lot. And you go to a Euro, if they're into a game of Concordia, or if they're into a game of, I think Terraforming Mars pretty popular, Side's pretty popular, Spirit Island pretty popular. These are chunky games. And you go to those tables, and it's like, oh, when's that going to wrap up? Oh, hour and a half, 90 minutes. And now I'm not even, like, they're not even talking to me. I'm just kind of like judging by the state of the board. So, I mean, I don't know. Okay. I say that. I get it from their perspective. They're there to game, and you don't want to like buzz around when you're playing a heavy Euro. Like, once you're there, and that's what you're there for. At the same time, the effect is, how welcoming is this, space? So I don't know how to solve that. I think like having a diverse space. So like Jen Bartlett, I'm kissing up to a lot of the Connecticut people.
We call this name dropping.
Yep.
Right.
But go ahead.
It's all Connecticut people, though. So it's not like it's whatever. So then she runs a library group, and she makes sure that she has teachers teach different types of games. Like, she picks the games ahead of time. So like, okay, here's your Euro game. If you don't want a Euro game, then go over there. Jason's teaching like some cooperative venture thematic, whatever, because that's what I like. So I'm usually on that. And then, so here's some filler games, and here's whatever. I think that a group can, if they are able to have different games set up and they get a little bit of buy-in, they can kind of build the culture that way. That would help a lot, because you're going to have groups that aren't playing the the 90-minute or 2-hour Euro, and they can lift their head ups. So I think that that would be one way to approach it.
You also mentioned that Jen is there welcoming people and sending them to the proper tables. And I think that's important too. If you're going to have a group that has people showing up beyond that start time, that someone is in charge of noticing that and being able to leave the game that they're at and welcoming the new person, and either starting something new with them, being willing to bow out of what they're doing, or to get something set up so that they can play something quick while another game is finishing up. But you need to have that point person who is going to literally welcome people. Right.
And it sounds a little, I think there's not a lot of gamers that would want to take that on. And so the people that do want to take that on, I thank you. If you want to be that moderator, like I think a lot of gamers, they want to show up and they want a game, and that's cool. The effect is that you get, I think the effect is that it becomes a little bit less inclusionary, and that welcoming has to be an intentional structured act.
Well, let me ask you this. I've gone to groups like you said, where I've gone there and everyone's in a game, and you're like, so I just kind of butt in a little bit because I'm fairly outgoing. If you're not, though, what do you do when you go to a group like that where there's not a lot of acknowledgement? What's your advice to those people?
Bring a game. Like, have something in your back pocket. If you are there with somebody, you can do like a 2-player something or whatever. We, like in the portal, like we have a whole shelf full of 2-player games. So it's like, and it's labeled 2-player games. So it's like, okay, get something going, get your appetite wet, and then move on. If it's just you, set something up, and see if you build it, they will come. Maybe there will be other people. You can kind of like be the straggler table and I've had that happen, like where people like other people are kind of like straggling. And it's like, well, let's just play a game ourselves, and it might not be the big Euro thing or whatever, the big kind of tent pole experience that you came for, but it's something, and it might lead to something else when a table breaks. Other than that, I mean, if somebody wants to tell me like, okay, I'm out of here, and they want to go bowling, I'm fine. Like let that be a mark upon us. Like we can do a lot better, in terms of welcoming people or structuring our communities to be a little bit more welcoming.
All right, one more question before we move on to the chat. You said you didn't want to badmouth specific games, but I'm hoping, or at least Jason here is hoping, different Jason, not you, that you might be willing to praise a particular game. Jason says that you, Jason, do some great cultural and historical analysis on various games.
He wrote this himself to
It
himself.
could be him. And I've enjoyed the series. You're a wonderful, handsome man, he says. No, it has really challenged me to look at games in a different light. Have you come across games that get a perfect cultural or historical score? If so, what games have you felt just nailed it and done all the right things?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a really tough one. I think, okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. This is an upcoming game. So if you want to go ahead and pre-order this, because I've taken a look at it, I consulted for it and everything.
Okay.
And so it's called Votes for Women. It is from...
Hey, we just played that here in the studio last week.
Yeah, Kevin was there. How did you like it?
I didn't play it, unfortunately. So, but the people who played it told me they enjoyed it. I was not in that game.
So then, I as an example, I mean, I'm generally a person that likes the underdog. I think in terms of like a general rule, whenever a game tries to depict a real historical underdog, I'm very like excited and pumped for it, because a lot of what cultural games do wrong is they put the player in a position of power and they're exercising power, but it's not in like a careful way. It's just, and you feel kind of gross. I don't want to play a colonizer. I don't want to play a butcher or whatever it is. Like I want to play a resistance fighter. So even, or like I want to fight for a cause. So like Votes for Women would be like, I'm fighting for a cause, women's suffrage. So, by the way, so advertise for the Dice Tower. Go ahead, check out last week's live stream on, check out Votes for Women. So then, like games like that, like look for games that play the underdog. Spirit Island is a game for the underdog. And there is, people have discussions about that. I personally love Spirit Island for its mechanics and its theme. I think that game is outstanding. I play the underdog. So give me more underdog, please. And I will get into this later, but I am working directly with publishers to try to get more underdog games, historical underdog games getting made.
All right, we got a question here from the New American Underground who says, can you give an example or story of what it means to not tolerate subtle behaviors around the table that are harmful or exclusionary?
To not tolerate settled behaviors?
Yeah, so like, you mentioned, for example, a very obvious one, you go into a game group and everyone's heads are down, so that's kind of exclusionary. But are there other things that can happen around a table that we shouldn't tolerate that you might not even think to call out? I read a lot into your question. Sorry, New American Underground.
Yeah, that's all good. Okay, actually, you have it posted over here. That's cool. Anytime you're saying, "Oh, that's just this person," any time where there's like a built-in excuse maker for a certain player at a table who happens to say misogynist things or inappropriate things or whatever, and we tolerate it because they're our friend and we know them and all that kind of thing, and it, what ends up happening is, well, we've tolerated that person, but how are they coming off to another outsider who doesn't know the scenario, right? So, try to look for those types of behaviors. Let's not isolate to an individual person, like a behavior. If you find yourself excusing stuff, if you find yourself doing it's just that person, or you just got to get to know them, you might want to take a look at that. You might want to say, maybe that person is acting in a way that is cool for our table, like we're used to it. But if we want to make a more open hobby, if we want more gamers to come in, if you notice people are coming in but they're not staying, then that's a question that you might want to ask. A lot of times the barriers to what we want are what we're already doing, and we just don't know it. Like we have blind spots to this stuff because they're our friends and it's the way it's always been. It's the way it's always been. See, as a culture advocate, the way it's always been isn't always awesome for somebody on the outside. Well, let me ask you this.
As an aside to that, then, I agree with you there, but what about people who are slightly autistic or on the spectrum? Because a lot of those people are drawn to board gaming.
Sure.
And so they come, they have whatever it is, and so they might be a little bit ruder than normal. They might be a little bit, like not necessarily a fun person to play with, but it's not. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah,
I'm not
I
talking
know exactly
about misogynists or things like that. I'm talking about people who I'm like, oh, I got to play with that person again. They're kind of a pain in the neck. But how do you deal with that? To me, that's something I really struggle with, because I don't want to. I know that I'm the only maybe group that this person has in their life, maybe that they come to the gaming group, but they're actively making it unfun for other people.
Mm-hmm. That's hard. I mean, obviously, as a mental health therapist, I'm like very merciful towards folks on the spectrum, or folks that have some developmental stuff, neurodivergent, which we've begun to call in the hobby, which I actually like that term a lot. And like different diagnoses. So I actually have a little bit more of a like I have the toolkit, right, to be able to talk to some people and help them understand and everything. Like I will literally pull, like, if that person, and it's case by case, right? If that person is saying something or behaving in a way that's exclusionary, like I don't have a problem pulling that person aside and opening the therapist toolkit, and saying da. And not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody feels equipped to do that. What I will say is that, and it goes back to like what we're talking about with like the welcoming person, the like either the moderator or the group or anything like that. I think it is worth, if you're going to be that person, right? If you're going to be that person that makes a space, it is worth studying a little bit of psychology. And it's not hard to be like kind to people. And people who suffer from those things deserve kindness. And it can be kind. You can do it in a kind way of addressing a issue. And you can put it in terms of like, okay, I'm helping you look at a behavior so that you have more people to play with. Everybody wants more friends. Everybody wants more opportunities to play. And maybe they just don't know that what they're doing, or it's hard to talk to them. So it's not that hard to look at do a little bit of like reading up on it, understanding what the person's thing is, especially if you're like a leader in the group, how to talk to them. And, so it takes a little bit of a longer tail. It's a little bit more pain in the butt, but what's the benefit is worth it. The benefit is worth it. What I don't want is like, choosing, right? I think that, we get into a mindset of like, I have to choose. I have to exclude this person, or, other people are not going to come. And as much as I reject that as much as possible. Like if it comes down to it, then man, that's just like group dynamics. But, try your best to express kindness on both ends and communicate to that person who may be on, some neurodivergent stuff going on, that this is an act of kindness. I'm interceding as an act of kindness to you. Like this is a behavior that is pushing other people away. If you were able to work with that, more people might come. More people might like you. It's worth working with. Doesn't work all the time, but I've had success with that kind of approach.
All right, there was one last quick question I wanted you to answer here from Loopy. It says, do you think being a DM has helped you in board gaming?
Yes. Yes, and I'll say yes, and it has helped me. I'm an adventure gamer. I'm a thematic gamer. Most of the games I read on Dice Tower, like big adventure thematic games like Assassin's Creed or Aetherfields, or like those are like Alter Quest. Those are the games that I totally drift for. So it's definitely shaped that way. I think like the way I was a DM is like I was a pretty, I'm rule of cool. I am rule zero. So that becomes a little bit difficult when you meet other gamers who are like, rules is written and everything. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And that doesn't fit the character. And I'm very willing to do that with my experience as a DM. And I find that board gamers are a little bit, or I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't generalize. The tendency is to be a little bit more rigid with the rules, if I could make that generalization.
No, I like that. That's good. All right, it's time to move on to our final segment for the show, and that's when we get to talk about some games, not that we haven't been doing so already. We call it 1 in 1, where we like to talk about one game that you played recently that had you excited for some reason, and one that's on your horizon in the near future. Jason, why don't you take us away first?
I actually prepared for this one.
All right. Clock's ready to go.
Now or Never from Ryan Lockett. The third in the series of Red Raven games. Above and Below and Near and Far were preceding it. And it is, anybody doesn't know, it's a Euro style game, but you travel across a land. And when you play the story mode, when you travel to certain parts of the land, you read like a story and you get choices, and a narrative emerges after that. So I love Near and Far. I loved Near. Didn't like as Bumble so much, but I do. When I got Near and Far, there's like I downloaded like a fan made Automa so I could play it solo, and I played like literally 24 hours. I was done with the whole campaign.
Wow.
I loved it. It was the perfect marriage of like I like kind of light to medium Euro. So like, like Lords of Waterdeep. Like I like that weight and that style. And I think that the mechanics of Near and Far were very, very resonant with what I knew from Lords of Waterdeep. And it had all the story stuff. Oh, perfect. So I'm like, now or never. It's gonna be I'm not going to say it's bad. I think my final score, if I was doing it on dice, would be like a 7.5, which is not. Like,
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, but it's not 9. It's not 9.5 like it was for. Like I saw your review. You give it a 6.
It's not
oh
as
my
good as
god,
Uno.
6.
I liked A Lot Now and Never, just too long. It's unfortunately too long.
It is. What they did was they took the game of it and they layered a bunch of stuff on the mechanical experience, and the story stuff is basically exactly the same. And so if you're gonna like evolve the game, I would have liked to seen an evolution of the story stuff, not necessarily the the more Euro-y stuff. And so it's actually, I mean, 7.5 is under your other reviewers. So I'm like, oh my god, I don't like, I was like kind of right in the middle over there. So I still like it. I still can recommend it. I still can see groups having a lot of fun with it. It is, as Tom said, very long. I would not play this game with 3. I was supposed to teach it at the library, and like 4 people are going to play it, and I'm going to just warn them ahead of time that like you guys are going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
If you don't like downtime, do not play at more than 2. So And so that's my biggest. I agree with that. That's kind of my biggest barrier with it. And just like I don't know that having more mechanisms means deeper experience. Sometimes more mechanisms just is more mechanisms, and I wonder if Now or Never kind of goes over that. However, it's still a good basic system, and the story is still enjoyable, and it's still Ryan Lockett, it's still Arzium, and so there's fun to be had. It's just compared to Near and Far. I think you made this point in your review as well, Tom. Like I have Near and Far in my life, so it's like, do I really need this one too? So I still think this one offers a little bit something different. So I'm a little bit more positive than you, but I agree with you that having Near and Far in your life, it's hard to give this one, get this one to the higher echelons.
All right, and what's on your horizon?
Okay, so Burn Cycle. Burn Cycle is over there somewhere. It's heavy, so I'm not even going to bother lifting it. Burn Cycle is the latest from Chip Theory Games. It is a sneaking game where you are subterfuge, kind of like Burgle Brothers, but like a really evolved, stealth action, infiltration game. And I'm excited for it, A, because it's a great game. It's a Chip Theory game. And B, it is my first title that I was the cultural consultant for. So I gave you a heads up ahead of time. So I am now a cultural consultant. I have now launched a business. As of today, I have not been able to launch my website, despite my launching a website is not that easy. Gotta make it look good. So it will go up soon. And I'm working with a lot of publishers, and there will be more and more games coming out where I've contributed as a cultural consultant. So I'm very excited about that. Cultural consultants are people that help games try to be more culturally resonant, avoid issues like we had a couple of months ago at Viticulture World. If you get in there early, you can help publishers spot issues and then go another direction and still get lots of fun games. And so I have a really, really big project coming in October, and I cannot wait to share it with everybody. So wink and a nod.
I will wink and nod along with you. Looking forward to that mysterious project.
Thank you very much for your sage.
So both of the things I want to talk about today are spousal success stories based on the recent top 10 that you did with Trey Parker, Tom, there in the studio. My wife was very interested in trying out Summit, the game about climbing the mountain. She wanted to try it out in cooperative mode. We managed to borrow a copy that someone had, and you're climbing a mountain and trying to work together. At least in the cooperative mode, you can play where you're trying to push people off the mountain. I don't really understand that mode.
I don't get that people want to play that, but yes, I agree.
We played it co-op. And you're laying tiles that are different speeds in which you can climb and trying to work together and leapfrog over each other. And somebody has to reach the top of the mountain and then work your way back down. As long as one of you makes it to the top and down to the bottom, you win. There's a scoring element, but you win as long as one person makes it. I'm not a huge fan of the game. I think it's a little too swingy with the weather die and the event deck. And some of those things can be super great for you and some can be just terrible for you. And if one goes one way or the other, it can really affect your ultimate play. But my wife really liked it. And it does produce some good stories. We had a group climb to the top and one woman brought the wingsuit with her and jumped off the mountain. As soon as she had tagged the top, she jumps off the mountain. And if you land, you have to roll some dice. And if you roll one thing on the dice, you land successfully at the base camp. And if you don't, you crash and burn. And she crashed and burned. And it took us the rest of the game to work our way back down where we, visited and erected a statue in her honor or something. And we created a story about it.
But you should not be jumping off a giant mountain. That's a bad idea.
You really shouldn't. But she really likes it, and so therefore we are getting a copy and putting it in the collection because that's usually a great criteria. If she's going to enjoy playing it, we'll hunt one down.
It's funny because I reviewed someone a couple years ago. The co-op was. I love co-ops, but man, I struggled with someone. I really did. So I'm glad you found somebody that liked it.
I'm glad she likes it. Well, and because she'll ask to play it, it'll probably hit the table more often than it would if it was just me making those decisions. The other one that my wife really enjoyed is, as you mentioned earlier, Viticulture. I taught her the base game this past weekend, hoping that she would like it because that co-op expansion is on the horizon, because I'd like to play Tuscany more often, and hoping that she would like it. And some of our college friends were over and hoping they would like it. And they really did. It's one of my favorite games. I adore it. I'm looking forward to the co-op expansion. And hoping that she would as well. And yes, she not only liked it, but beat me in the second game that we played. Just phenomenal playing on her part. So Tuscany is on the horizon. That co-op expansion is definitely going to be ordered soon.
Just so you know, there's not a ton of compatibility between Tuscany and the expansion. You can use the buildings.
Okay.
That's about it. There's not much more.
It
it's
means
almost
we
like
have
two different games.
Aye. We have a lot to explore in the world of Viticulture now that I know she likes it. So that is my on the horizon, looking forward to that, Viticulture.
All right, I'm going to talk about Museum Pictura. So Museum is a game I enjoyed about collecting various things across the world, different artifacts for the museum, and great artwork from Vincent Dutrait. I liked it, kind of a set collection game. Museum Pictura says, hey, what if we made that slightly more complicated and not as fun? So that's what this game pulls off here. I really wanted to like it because the idea of art galleries, even though I'm not a big fan of them, I kind of go into them and go, this is really cool art. And then I'm done. I don't know how people go in there and stare at it for a while, but yeah, everyone's different. But I like the idea of collecting it. But this game has this mechanism where you can, each turn, you're collecting paintings. At the end of the game, you arrange them in a 15-minute time of silence where everyone at the table is arranging their museum to get the maximum amount of points. But you can trade a card into one of these different areas on the board and then take a card back. And depending on what cards you're trading in and back, you might lose or gain some points. The thing is, every time you do that, everyone at the table may also do that, and it becomes mind-numbingly repetitive after a while. It's like, I'm going to trade a card in. Are you John? No. Are you Susan? No. Are you Sarah? No. Are you Bob? Yes. Okay. Okay, it's your turn. And then we all go around. I was like, it was so much more. I really want to like this. I didn't dislike the game. Like, it's fine as a game. It just feels like sometimes the mechanisms float to the top and you can see them and they get in the way of the game, and this is one of those.
Okay. Do you think there'd be a way you could streamline it to find the fun and sort of get past some of that mechanical stuff?
Go buy a museum.
Okay.
I mean, again, sometimes, and Jason said this earlier, that sometimes adding more mechanisms doesn't make a game better. I really feel that way. A lot of expansions have yet to figure that out. Like, I think Tuscany is like an exception, right? But most expansions are like, did you like this? Here's a new section. And even Tuscany had that. Like, when you talk about Tuscany for viticulture, everyone likes most of it. But how many people do you know play with the cheese and the extra stuff that's in it? Like, I think you can open a restaurant or something. That's just extra stuff. It makes the game longer, not as good.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, what am I looking forward to? The Thing, the board game. Now, this is the third game with this topic. I have it. It's from Pendragon Studios. Come on. One of these times, it's got to work. I feel like subliminally, every time I say I don't like semi-co-op games, people get on my case, and I maintain that a semi-co-op game only works if every player at the table gets into it, and it only takes one player to break it, and that doesn't make that person a bad person. But a game needs to give you incentives, and if I say we're all going to lose, or I can't win, I guess is a better thing. I can't win, so why do I care if you win? You know, that you're asking me to do something in good nature there, which might work in real life, but not in a game. Anyway, the idea of who is it, who is infected, will they infect other people? It's a fabulous thing, fabulous idea. Sorry, I don't want to use the word thing too many times. So I'm hoping this is the game. It looks great, has cool components. It better be good. It better be good.
Excellent.
Have you played it, either of you?
No. So there was one that was the Thing themed. What's the second game that you mentioned that came before? Are you talking about like
There's
Panic
the Thing
Station?
Outpost at. Oh yeah, that's right. I even forgot about Panic Station.
Okay.
And then there's the one that's based on the short story that the Thing came from. Which name is? It's a huge Kickstarter production. I forget the name of it though. But neither game was particularly good. They both had some problems, and it all delves back into the whole semi-co-op nature usually.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. If someone is really looking for your cultural consultancy website, which is coming soon, apparently.
Coming soon. It's going to be great.
Where do they go to find out more information about not just that, but everything else that you're up to?
Shelf Stories GBL, Games Books Life. Shelf Stories GBL on Twitter. I am pretty open on my DMs. I am not. I'll regret that soon, or at some point, I'm gonna regret being so open on Facebook. But I try to, be open and honest and kind when people hit me up there. Pope Sixtus on BGG. Those are my personal things. Eventually, there will be a shelfstories.com, shelfstoriesconsulting.com that you can go to. That link is not live now, but it is coming. So if you want to just talk, chat with me. I had someone ask me about, cultural consulting, like just being a part of a team. I'm open to that. I'm open to different people and different contributions and everything, because I don't know everything. I'm open to different perspectives. So yeah, and if you're, gaming stuff, cooperative stuff, yeah, I'm pretty open. So those are the best ways to reach me. And Shelf Stories YouTube channel.
Cool.
All right, folks, if you're listening to this, we're certainly glad you came on board. Don't forget, you can get your tickets for the Dice Tower Cruise right now. If you want to come and see the voices that you're listening to and play an amazing game in a very relaxed environment, the most relaxed environment you can get, check out dicetowercruise.com.
Ahoy.
Jason, thanks so much for coming on board with us. We look forward to seeing more of what you do in the future and hear from you. But until next time. Oh, sorry, I guess. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jason. All right. Well, anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching or listening to At the Table with Tom and Eric.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again in 2 weeks when our guest will be the Game Boy geek, Dan King. At the Table is produced by Tom and me with assistance from Roy Kennedy, Wendy Yee, and Chris Yee. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. The Knights of the Round struggling to overcome the hidden machinations of a traitorous dromedary provided by Shadows over Camel Up. And support for everything at the Dice Tower comes from viewers and listeners like you. Reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, or to Tom at dicetower.com or Eric at dicetower.com. Until we see you again, from all of us at the table, have
Have
fun gaming.
gaming.